The desert doesn't forgive. Two strangers cross a wasteland in search of a new life.
Once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Stumble upon something far more dangerous. Buried beneath the burning sand lies a massive piece of gold, bigger than either of them has ever seen. One stays behind to guard it, trapped under the endless sun. As the other goes for help, days turn to nightmares. The heat, the hunger, and the voices in the wind blur the line between greed and madness. Out here, the real danger isn't the desert. It's desire itself. The film takes place in a harsh, post-apocalyptic world where civilization has collapsed after a devastating global war. Society has crumbled. Resources are scarce. And survival itself is a daily struggle. Our story follows Vigil, a weary traveler riding a freight train through an endless, scorching desert. During the ride, he notices a starving woman clutching her baby, both eyeing his small piece of bread. Moved by pity, Vigil hobbles over and quietly offers them his food. After leaving the train at a remote station, Vigil meets Keith, a rough-edged driver hired to take him to a place known as the Compound. As Vigil freshens up at a nearby water tap, Keith warns him not to waste a drop.
This isn't a goddamn beauty spa. Don't waste water.
Water here is more valuable than gold. They soon climb into Keith's dusty pickup truck, ready to begin the long journey. As they drive, Keith demands extra payment for gas and water. Vigil, caught off guard, protests that these costs were supposed to be included in the $200 fare. The driver shrugs and threatens to turn back, forcing Vigil to reluctantly agree. When Vigil reaches for the air conditioner, Keith switches it off immediately.
Leave it on there.
Saying it'll overheat the engine in this heat. Hours later, the truck jerks to a stop with a flat tire. While Vigil changes it himself to avoid being overcharged, they witness a brutal scene nearby. A wild dog tearing into another, half-alive one. Disturbed, Keith chases the attacker away and mercifully ends the wounded animal's suffering with a stone. That night, they make camp under the desert sky. Around the fire, they talk about the ruins of their world. Curious, Keith asks why Vigil is heading to the compound. Vigil shows him a flyer advertising jobs and a better future there.
Once in a lifetime.
Moving forward, I just want to let you know, if you liked watching this video, please consider subscribing as it helps us grow and make more content for you. The driver laughs bitterly, saying it's nothing but lies. Just a trap to lure desperate workers into slavery. He tells Vigil there's nothing ahead but hard labor and misery. Still, Vigil insists that anything is better than the hopelessness he left behind. The next morning, their trip continues. When Keith grows drowsy, Vigil takes the wheel. Taking advantage of the moment, he turns on the AC for comfort. A mistake that proves costly. The truck begins to smoke and soon breaks down. Keith wakes in fury, shouting at him for ignoring his warning. Vigil apologizes, but the damage is done.
Fuck!
As Keith works to fix the engine, Vigil wanders off a short distance to relieve himself. That's when something catches his eye. Sunlight glinting from beneath a pile of rocks. Curious, he approaches and brushes away the sand. To his shock, what's revealed looks like pure gold. Excited, he calls for Keith. Together, they inspect the find. Keith even tests it with a lighter to confirm. It's genuine gold. The realization sends both men into a frenzy of excitement. This discovery could change their lives forever. They try to dig the gold out by hand, but it's massive and deeply buried. Next, they tie it to the truck with a rope, hoping to yank it free, but the rope snaps instantly. The piece is far heavier than either of them imagined. That night, they camp beside the site, lighting a fire to keep away the roaming desert dogs. As they eat and talk, they agree they'll need proper machinery, an excavator, to pull the gold out. Keith proposes to drive to the nearest settlement and find one, leaving Vigil behind to guard the spot. But Vigil refuses, insisting he'll stay instead. He doesn't know the town or the people, while Keith has contacts there. Keith warns him that staying in the desert is dangerous. Supplies must be rationed, temperatures are brutal, and wild animals lurk in the dark. He also doubts Vigil's ability to protect himself or the treasure. Yet Vigil won't budge. In the end, Keith gives in. At dawn, they split their limited food and water, with Keith taking the larger share for the road. Before leaving, he hands Vigil a small bag containing a hunting knife, extra clothing for sun protection, and a satellite phone to keep in touch.
I'm gonna try and buy one when I get to the excavator. Then I can call you.
They part ways, and Keith promises to return in 5 days with the excavator. Once the driver disappears into the horizon, Vigil immediately buries the gold under sand to keep it hidden. He builds a crude camp and gathers branches to start a fire. When night falls, he eats canned food by the flickering flames. The pack circles his camp, but keeps its distance from the firelight. The following morning, Vigil relieves himself behind a dune and skips washing to conserve water. Suddenly, the satellite phone rings. Panicking, he runs toward it with his pants still down, but misses the call. Later that day, he explores the surrounding area and stumbles upon the wreckage of an old airplane resting in a dry basin. It could provide better shelter, but he refuses to move there, unwilling to leave the gold unguarded. Instead, he scavenges pieces of the fuselage and drags them back to his camp. Reinforcing his makeshift hut, days pass. The relentless sun burns his skin, leaving blisters across his face. To distract himself, he continues digging around the gold and manages to chip off a small piece, holding it in his hand. Soon, the phone rings again. It's Keith. He explains that his truck broke down and repairs are taking longer than expected. Vigil tells him about the fragment he managed to extract, but Keith orders him not to touch anything else until he returns. Time drags on. Supplies dwindle. Vigil's water bottle is almost empty, and his lips are cracked and bleeding. Yet he spends his days staring at the buried treasure. One morning, he spots a snake slithering near camp and tries to catch it for food. In the chaos, the snake escapes, and he accidentally spills most of his remaining water. That afternoon, Vigil wanders back toward the wrecked airplane when he spots someone approaching through the heat haze. A lone woman walking steadily toward him. Alarmed, he hides inside the broken fuselage, but the woman calls out, telling him she knows he's there. She asks who he is, what he's doing in the middle of nowhere, and where he's headed. Vigil refuses to answer, keeping silent and suspicious. Seeing his ragged condition, she kindly offers him food and water, but he stubbornly turns her down. Concerned, the woman mentions a well only 5 kilometers away where he could easily refill his supplies. Still, Vigil ignores her, increasing her suspicion that he's hiding something. After a moment, she spots footprints leading away from the wreck and realizes he must have another camp nearby. When she starts walking in that direction, Vigil grows nervous and pleads with her to stop. He offers her the plane as shelter and insists she shouldn't go any further. The woman keeps questioning why he's staying out here, but he has no answer. Overwhelmed and paranoid, Vigil begins to lose his composure, begging her to leave him alone. She gently advises him to stay calm, but when she turns to walk toward his camp again, panic overtakes him. She soon reaches his camp and demands to know what he's guarding. He shouts for her to leave, but she refuses, accusing him of coming from the city to take whatever he wants while others suffer. The argument quickly escalates, And when she tries to search through his things, Vigil snaps. In a moment of blind rage, he swings a shovel and strikes her head.
Boy, now why don't you...
The blow kills her instantly. Realizing what he's done, Vigil is horrified. He buries her body nearby, but the scent soon attracts wild dogs that begin digging up the grave. Desperate to keep them away, he moves her corpse farther out into the desert. Yet more dogs appear. With no other choice, he builds a pyre and burns the body, whispering an apology as flames consume it, the only way to keep her from being torn apart by the beasts. The next morning, the satellite phone rings again. Keith's voice comes through the static, saying he's finally secured the excavator and is heading back, though his truck is still having problems. As they talk, Vigil notices a distant vehicle crossing the horizon. For a moment, he considers flagging it down, taking the small piece of gold he dug up and leaving. But greed takes hold. He convinces himself to stay. The full treasure is worth more than anything else in the world. Later, while gathering wood, Vigil notices a sandstorm rapidly forming in the distance. He rushes back to camp as the sky turns dark and the wind howls. The storm slams into him with brutal force, tearing apart his shelter and flinging debris everywhere. A heavy branch crashes down, striking him in the head. When he awakens, the desert is quiet again. Sand covers everything, including him. A large branch has pierced his abdomen. He groans in pain and tries to move, searching through the dunes for his belongings. Most are gone. With trembling hands, he digs until he finds the gold, still buried beneath layers of dust. Even now, bleeding and weak, his obsession drives him to protect it. He uses a can lid heated over the fire to cauterize the wound, screaming as he presses it against his skin, then wraps his abdomen with a filthy cloth. He collapses again from exhaustion. Sometime later, he opens his eyes, and to his shock, the woman he killed stands before him, holding a bow and arrow aimed at his chest. Everything fades again. When he wakes next, it's night. A fire burns beside him, and the woman sits across the flames, offering him a cup of water. She repeats the same words she'd said the first time they met. Dazed, Vigil realizes he might be hallucinating from dehydration and heat stroke. Over the next day, when Keith calls again, Vigil tells him about the visions, saying he's been seeing the woman everywhere. Keith panics, warning him that she's probably after the gold and must be dealt with. But Vigil insists she means no harm and promises to take care of things himself. Later, the woman reappears with more food and once again offers to lead him to the nearby well. He screams at her to leave him alone. Before walking away, she softly asks if he's seen her sister.
So you didn't see my sister?
Her question hits him like lightning. The woman he killed must have been her twin. Shocked and guilt-ridden, Vigil tells her to go and collapses into unconsciousness once more. When he wakes that night, she's gone. Around him, multiple fires burn, likely lit by her before she left to keep the dogs away. But he's now too weak to move. He calls Keith through the phone, asking desperately where he is. Keith replies that he can see the smoke from a distance and will be there soon. Relieved, Vigil clutches the phone tightly. But then, the fire begins to fade, and the growls of wild dogs echo from the dark. As the last flames die out, they surround him. One lunges forward, biting into his leg. He tries to fight back, screaming into the phone for Keith to hurry. Somewhere in the distance, Keith sits watching through binoculars, surrounded by cigarette butts and empty cans. It becomes clear he's been there for days, waiting and watching, hoping Vigil dies so he can claim the gold for himself. Back at the camp, the dogs tear into Vigil's body. Too weak to resist, he screams until his voice breaks, begging for help that never comes. The attack grows more violent until everything falls silent. Once it's over, Keith finally approaches. He finds Vigil's mauled corpse and feels a twisted sense of satisfaction. Setting down his pack, he prepares to start the machinery and dig out the gold himself. But just as he begins, a sharp whistle cuts through the air. Then an arrow pierces his chest. Keith stumbles, gasping, looking around for the shooter. But there's no one in sight. He collapses to the ground, lifeless, as the wind blows across the empty desert. The gold still buried beneath the sand, cursed by greed and death.